when we left, we were talking about out-of-control behaviors, and one of them that was mentioned in our list was regression, sort of acting like a younger child. Can you give us some examples of how that would look?
I think what we see with our kids at Friends Outside, some of them, is they revert to much younger, immature behaviors, and that's really what regression means. Just reverting to a younger state of development.
Okay.
Maybe being clingy, maybe being whiny, maybe being needy, not easily satisfied, kind of obnoxious, kind of in the caregiver's face, just feeling really insecure.
Okay, so really highly visible, it sounds like.
Highly visible.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at our next set of behaviors that we see. A child may be in a new, unfamiliar living situation with a foster parent, another relative, or a friend. The child may not know or understand why the parent is not there. And some children in this situation may feel that they are to blame for the absence of the parent. So we'll go back to the first one in terms of unfamiliar living situations. How often do the children become placed in foster care as a result of this?
Fairly often.
Okay.
But our children at Friends Outside don't seem to be in the dependency system. Most of those children are with relatives and mostly grandparents. Recently I heard a statistic that about 10% of the children in California are being raised by a grandparent, which is really quite a large number. And so to offset some of the difficulties for grandparents, we've set up a grandparent caregiver group.
Great for you.
So they can support each other and talk about what it's like to have the responsibility for this next generation when their older children are already in custody and in and out of custody, and then really burdened by this. You know, some of them have five or six kids in the home, and it's a tremendous burden and a tremendous responsibility.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it sounds like they feel like they have a choice of either sending the child to a system or somehow making do. So I'm glad that they have you to help give them some support with this. The other ones that came up for us were that a child may not know or understand why the parent isn't there. So the caretakers don't tell them where the parents are?
That's sometimes the case, and the research shows that that's not the highest and best for the child. There's a lot of shame attached to having a parent in custody, and so sometimes the family will try to, quote, protect the child from that shame by not telling the truth about where the parent is. But actually that sets up more doubt and more frustration for the child, and ultimately the truth comes out. And so the research shows that it's really better for the family to tell the child where the parent is and to make arrangements for the child to see the parent. And I know a lot of people have problems with having a child go to a jail to see a parent behind bars. But really, in terms of the child's sense of security, it is better for that child to go to a jail and see the parent. At least it resolves the mystery.
Well, that's right, because as children, being so egocentric, if you don't do that, I would guess the assumption would always be it's something related to them, or something really awful, or
that they've caused it. And that gets to the third item on your list, that somehow they're responsible, that their behavior or the fight in the family was over them, and the police were called, or that they're causing some behaviors because they're not right somehow.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
That is sad. Well, and yet in another sense, it's probably the only way to feel power in that situation.
Right.
Which is, well, at least if it's my fault, maybe I can fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good point.
Now, we'll move on now and talk about some of the resiliency work that's been done in terms of the reality is, I know the research shows that just because children are experiencing hardship, or just because families have a crisis, does not necessarily mean that children themselves are going to be somehow damaged or injured, that there are certain things that can happen to help children overcome this. Because the truth is, not everybody who comes from a violent background grows up and goes to jail.
Right.
I mean, so,
right.
You know, it's looking at how come those children don't go to jail.
Right.
You know, what's going on in their life.
Right.
So let's take a look at the next 4 factors,
All
so
right.
you can explain them to us, which are the school, the child and their peers, press, sorry about that, community, and family. So in terms of school, what can the schools provide that would be helpful for a child like this?
The schools can provide clear rules, role models through the teachers, a sense of caring about the child, activities for the child, opportunities for the children to become involved in leadership roles and cross-age counseling, and ways to tap into the child's strengths. The schools can make sure the kids learn to read, because we know that when children can read, they're much more likely to be resilient as adults. It's a critical piece.
Wait, well, can you talk, is that, instinctively I thought, well, yeah, because then maybe they know about more resources. Is that accurate, or why is that?
Reading makes life easier.
Just makes life easier.
Reading makes life easier, right? It's a verbal or written world that we live in, and kids need to know how to negotiate and contracts and instructions and street signs and the rules, and that they have to read to know the rules.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Right.
I'm sorry to have interrupted
That's all
you.
right.
It's
That's
an interesting fact. Okay, so schools can provide an atmosphere where children can maybe learn some of their strengths and have them acknowledged, be given a skill set.
Have high expectations for the children, have high standards for the children. Interestingly enough, one of the factors that goes against resiliency is labeling a child high risk at school. So it's important to not label children and to treat them with respect and dignity, and with the opportunity to achieve no matter what their family backgrounds are. And I'm really glad that this information is getting to the forefront these days.
Well, at some level, I could see where that would make sense. I mean, even in reading groups, children that are bumped down to the butterfly group instead of, the tiger group, I mean, they know that's happening. So, if a child's labeled high risk, I mean, I could see where that would affect their self-esteem.
As schools need to identify kids with learning disabilities and attention deficit disorder and provide the remedial information that they need, and to help kids build a sense of mastery, so that even though things are not well at home, there's an opportunity for a child to have an environment where he or she can be successful.
Good point. When I think of clients that I've seen who came from pretty chaotic backgrounds, several of them have said what got them through was playing sports, having a coach who was consistently interested in them, and being good at their grades. It's like it was a place where at least they could feel good about themselves.
Very true.
Yeah. What about peers?
The next category is the child and peers themselves, so that we know that if a youngster has social skills and can pick appropriate friends, if a youngster has a sense of humor, if a youngster has a sense of mastery about those skills I just talked about, a good sense of self-esteem, an ability to be engaging with other people, which is really an interesting concept, that the child can be charming and kind of present himself in a way that people like that child, they're much more apt to be successful.
Well, that's in line with the emotional intelligence studies we talked about with Daniel Goleman's book.
Yes.
Yeah, which is the more you can negotiate people, the better.
And the more the child can pick appropriate peers and not be led astray by the ones who aren't behaving themselves, the better off the child will be. And then the next category
was community.
Community. So there are lots of things that can happen in the community for youngsters. Church groups, for example, all the youth programs that are going on in this community right now, all the resiliency efforts being done by the Mayor's Gang Task Force. Frankly, it's a very exciting time to be working in this community. After all these years, all the professionals seem to be on the same page. And we're looking at what we can do to protect these kids instead of coming in to heal them or patch them up after the fact. And that's what will work, and that's what will make the difference. There are many, many resources in Santa Clara County, and it's very exciting to see the growth of mentoring programs, because another key piece for a youngster is to have a role model or a mentor who can shepherd them through some of the difficult times. The Child Advocate program that Nora Manchester has is one for children of dependent the dependency system, and Judge Reed Ambler is setting up a mentoring program for delinquent kids who have been identified with learning disabilities and attention deficit disorder. So we're looking at ways to help these kids achieve a sense of connection and security and self-worth, that they really mean something no matter what their parents are doing. They're not responsible for that parent's behavior.
And they have a chance themselves to do it differently.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, we have just a couple minutes, and I know you wanted to tell us a little more about this project that you're doing. I know it's unique.
Yes.
Is it the first in the county or first in the state to be tried, or are you building on a model that already exists?
Well, collaboration is not a new model, but it is new to Friends Outside.
Okay.
That has been an agency in the community here for 40 years, serving children and families of incarcerated people. And they've had youth programs that were primarily activity-based for the different age ranges of kids, teen girls, teen boys, Girl Scouts, camping programs, summer school, and those kinds of activities, but they were primarily recreational based. So what we're doing is adding therapists to the component. We're adding individual and group therapy. We're offering a network of family therapists who've agreed to donate time to kids. So I've built a network of private therapists who are graciously willing to help.
Fabulous.
We're looking at ways to put our programs onto school sites where there's a more normalized setting for kids to come over after school and do some things there that they can do that'll keep them out of trouble. We are bringing in art therapists. We're bringing in Green Circle from National Conference of Christians and Jews. I'm building a collaboration, not just at Friends Outside, but with all the youth providers in the area to look at this population, but not to identify them or single them out in a way that's going to bring shame or embarrassment to them, but to enrich their lives through the museum program and the work-study programs that are out there. And we're also building a mentoring program. So these kids will really have an expanded set of opportunities and a sense that maybe there is hope for them.
Well, they're certainly fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
In terms of because my experience so far with criminal justice is that the systemic approach, collaborative approach, is the only thing that works.
Right.
I mean, because there's so many facets that need to be addressed. I want to thank you for coming down. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity.
It's exciting, the work you're doing. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Join us in the upcoming weeks as we explore spiritual blocks and gangs. I'm Mary Crocker Cook. Good night.
For topic suggestions, write to Bay Area Psychology at 1723 Hamilton Avenue, Suite A, San Jose, California 95125, or call at 408